Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. The Ukrainians instituted the Assault Brigades, and they opened the doors to civilians to join these assault brigades. That reminds me of shock troops. And whomever wants to apply over there to fight the Russians can do it. Supposedly, or not supposedly, reportedly, it was reported by the Ukrainians, they say that the applicants will go through a certain kind of, a process. They will be physically examined, maybe psychologically examined, I think, and then allowed to go and fight. I don't know how much experience you need to have, but this is what they say. I personally, I'm very skeptical that that's going to be the process. And why? Because experience, knowledge tells me that. And I suggest, if you question that and you didn't have or you don't have that information yet, just if you don't want to pick up some books, just do a little bit of clicks, and you're going to find out that in history, a lot of things were said in a certain way, and after the event, a war, you found out it was quite the opposite, or not really like that. Why? Because propaganda has to do its job. In this case, I'm just skeptical and worried that the Ukrainian population is really used into doing something that other people did at the end of 1945 war. Let's put it this way. Before May 9th, 1944, so the end of the war. And that was, let me show you some little things. I'm afraid that the guys will get to this point, the Ukrainians, or they will get to this point, or they will get to this point. And I really don't want this to happen to Ukraine. So much diversity here. And right here, I don't want this. This is a prisoner of war, obviously. Deutscher Volkssturm Wehrmacht. And then you have old people here defending the same band here, defending Berlin from the incoming Russians. So we have this little thing coming from New Voice of Ukraine. Thousands of volunteers submitting applications to join assault brigades per day, says Interior Ministry. February 4th, 2023, or if you want it this way, New Voice of Ukraine, the same thing, but via Yahoo, the same submitting applications. And we find in the other article, right here, more than 3,000 volunteers per day have applied to join the assault brigades of the Offensive Guard, the Ministry of Internal Affairs reported in its press release on February 4th. In particular, 3,086 citizens, it's very important to say citizens right here, applied at centers for the provision of administrative services, of which 527 submitted applications. 2,049 questionnaires were submitted to the target website storm.and. A total of 480 calls were received to the hotline for consultations on the entry and activity of assault brigades of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. So, let's read further. It's not a long article. Members of the public can apply to join the Offensive Guard by submitting an application on the website. Previously, acting head of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, Ihor Klimenko, announced the beginning of the formation of assault brigades of the Offensive Guard to liberate captured Ukrainian territories and strengthen the defense forces. In Kharkiv Oblast, it was decided to create 8 assault brigades of the Offensive Guard. The other article says the same thing. The same thing right here. So this or this. I didn't put any women in that because I don't think the Germans had at that time. So, not women, the Russians paid them some visit, if you remember that one. Not the Russians, sorry, my bad. The Soviet army paid them some visit. In the Soviet armies, there were some Ukrainians too, by the way, Georgians, Russians and other nationalities. That's how it is, Soviets, but they call it the Russian army. Well, whatever, like I just did, because after years of hearing that, and it's incorrect, you get used to that. But at least I caught it, like I always do, I think. Now, my as how should I put it, as bad as I feel for the Ukrainians, that they are, in my opinion, used by bigger forces that don't really, you know what I mean? As upset as I am with them, I can't help thinking, again, based on knowledge, and I don't have to say this again, it's just because I'm... anyway, I don't think that I'm skeptical that these brigades will be formed by the Ukrainian citizens only. I suspect that under the cover of this, other kind of brigades could be formed that we're gonna find out after the war. But that's just a gut feeling. I have no evidence to support that. That's why I'm just skeptical that these guys are gonna be what they say they will. And if they are, and I'm pretty sure they are, but when you tell a lie, you don't have to go, 100% into the lie. You tell some truth, you alternate it. So you tell some truth, and on the skeleton of the truth, you add lies. So I don't, for instance, or you just try to deceive people. You have to tell the truth. You have to, and then after you gain confidence and trust, you can come with little lies. So I'm thinking that that's desperation in Ukraine at this point, and this, I think, is a very clear example that the Ukrainians get to that point where they're going to use anything just to defend their country. I don't know if this is going to happen. I hope it will happen after this, whatever happened in Ukraine, I don't want to call it whatever, war. There will be a point where justice will be dispensed or dispersed, or anyway, and that is, I hope is going to be justice across the board. But I think that would mean that the second coming of Jesus Christ is going to be that particular time, because I don't think whomever the victors will be in this one, and I suspect that both will claim victory. I don't think either side will succeed. They will claim victory, both sides, and then they will just prosecute in absentia the other side, unless Russia is going to be, somehow the head is going to be cut off, and then the weasels are going to be planted over there by the victors, and then you're really going to have Nuremberg-style trials and hangings and all that. War criminals deserve whatever is what war criminals deserve. But on the other hand, if you pretend at least to be just, then you have to close your eyes and pick people around, and judge them and try them in an objective way without looking at who's this, oh, you stay there, who's this. But, life doesn't work this way, unfortunately, but it works, you stay there. And examples are numerous. I mean, these guys are considered war criminals, some of them, but other people who dropped, bombs over civilian cities are considered heroes. You know who I'm referring to. We have two towns in Japan that stand a witness to that, and that was civilians bombarded. It was not military infrastructure, as BBC reported. It didn't say military infrastructure; it said military installation. I think that was the reporting when the Americans dropped in Hiroshima. But anyway, that's why I trust a lot BBC. That was when I said, nah, with you I'm done. But hey, maybe that's what the Americans told them, and they just got it and then reported it further. But anyway, an atomic bomb over military equipment or whatever, installations or... Anyway, coming back to this one. It's sad that you have to do this and get your last resources, human resources, into a war. It's sad that we got to this point. I think all this could have been avoided a long time ago, at least if they would have, first, if those guys would not have overthrown the legitimate democratically elected government of Ukraine in 2014, the Yanukovych government, that, or if you want to go back, you can blame others as well. But that was the point where things really escalated. And then you can have the Minsk agreements, 1, 2, again, 2014, 2015. If that would have been followed, this could have been avoided. But we have 3 testimonies, or at least statements, made by Angela Merkel of Germany, former Chancellor of Germany. You got Hollande, the President of France, and then you have Poroshenko, the former President of Ukraine, all 3 saying that actually they signed Minsk agreements, protocols, agreements, whatever you want to call them, just to buy time and to arm Ukraine. Why would you arm Ukraine if you already signed that as being solving the problem? Because probably they were not really into whatever they signed. So that was a weasel move, I would say. And I don't want to blame those guys, but a lot of people died in those separatist, which were the separatist, if you want to use that kind of euphemism, regions. And they were separatists because they didn't recognize the new government that overthrew the legitimate government. And then all that. So that could have been avoided. So I'm sorry for these guys over there having to fight. And I suspect that there's a possibility that foreign troops will enter and will fight the Russians under certain kind of euphemistic, terms like volunteers or, knowingly or not knowingly, peacekeeping forces, or I was about to say stormtroopers, but no, it's what's the name of these guys? Let's see, volunteers, but they're called offensive something. Assault Brigades of the Offensive Guard. Okay, well, yeah, the same. When you find out that some volunteers were killed in Bakhmut, an American and 2 Norwegians were hurt, again, there was just medics trying to help. Why? Because this is what these guys say. Probably the other guys are going to say something else. But we at this point, we work with what we have, and after all this settles down, if we're still alive by then, we can look back and say, but I'm not going to wait for that because I have, and you can get the same information from the past. It's just different names, different locations, and but during the war. And you're going to find out they use the same book. Oh, what do we do now? Oh, what do we do now? The same way. What do we do now? We lie. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.